30. Get my food out before we unmute you. Keep my crinkling to a minimum. Plug that in?
Yeah, that's what
All right, let's wait a little bit before we go live then.
Just go ahead.
Okay. I've not unmuted you yet, but this thing plugged in at all? Okay, I think it.
Just plug it up top. Okay.
You charging?
No, go. Turn it on.
Are you charging? I have it plugged in.
Okay, we're good. Go.
We're good? Okay. Sorry. Little delay. Okay, I'm going to give you the 5. Ready? I'm muting.
And welcome to the Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, the production of the Libertarian Party Affiliate Support Committee, Valerie Sarwak serving as chair, and of course the Libertarian National Committee, Whitney Bilyeu serving as chair. As always, John Gapso brings us up the big board. He brings us the infotainment, the graphics, and the great pictures, and makes this, I believe, the most fun hour on Libertarian Party television. Others may disagree. Special guest tonight. We're going to do a little bit of a shift here, a focus. I'm calling tonight, well, the CRM Project 101. And if there's been a steady force, a champion, someone who has been the guiding hand beyond the CRM Project, and of course, our vice chair of the Libertarian National Committee, and that's Ken Moellman. Ken, welcome to LPTV again, and thanks for joining us tonight. I know last night was a long night for a few of us, but hopefully, and then, you spent the rest of the night probably answering data, right?
Yeah, after the meeting, I had consumed, about a pot of coffee during that meeting to stay awake. And the funny thing about caffeine, it doesn't wear off right away. So I spent time importing data for Oregon. They were in the queue, and I've been working with Florida on some of their data and, trying to do data improvement generally. And I won't get into this, but data is absolutely key to success.
Well, I can remember even from those drunken first-year frosh days, garbage in, garbage out. That's about all I've taken away from my, if you will, institutional learning. But what I want to do tonight is really give people a complete perspective. Make this as much of a history lesson as a primer, as an attempt to define the project, the goals, where we stand, really a complete focus on the CRM project. So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know folks obviously know you as the vice chair. I've known you for a great deal longer as someone who's been an activist and have served virtually at every capacity imaginable in the libertarian movement. But give us a little snapshot about yourself, how you got involved in the movement, and some of the roles you've occupied.
Sure. So I officially joined the party in 1999. I think I signed up for an inquiry in 98 and joined in 99. I was bemoaning that I've always been a small government person, always wanting to increase individual liberty at the local level, and was bemoaning to a friend of mine that the Republicans had completely failed at the contract with America. And we were talking, and I said, I don't know where I belong. I have no idea.
Just turn it on again.
What party. Pat, we can hear you, by the way, I think. So, but I didn't know where I belonged. And I went through my beliefs, and he said, man, you sound like a libertarian. I'm like, what's a libertarian? So he pointed me to lp.org. I did an inquiry. And then in 1999, Harry Brown came to Louisville, and I heard him speak, and I'm like, yes, this is my home. Became a dues-paying member that year, I think I ended up lapsing somewhere along the way just because some of the internal stuff that was going on at National in the early aughts and not following up with members. And then in 2006, I got a random email from my state chair saying, hey, who wants to run for Congress? Come to Louisville on this day. And by the way, I live in Kentucky. Come to Louisville on this day. So I did. And there were 2 of us from the district. I ended up being the campaign manager. I had a great candidate, despite the fact that neither of us knew what we were doing. We raised a whopping $750 and pulled almost 5% in a 3-way race against an incumbent Republican. The Democrat had actually held the seat just prior, had term limited himself, and had then, we were excluded from 2 of the 3 debates, but pulled 5% in that race with good messaging and just the right amount of sarcasm and wit. Had a great candidate. But the frustration I had was that with that great candidate, we had no data. I had asked the state party for a list of donors. They didn't have it. I asked the party for a list of registered voters. Didn't have it. I had to beg them to buy a registered voter list from the state, which at the time was only $500 statewide. And we had other candidates running in other congressional districts that year. So I had to beg them. I finally got that data, I think the beginning of September of 2006, which by then, I mean, and I've learned since, voters pretty much have their minds made up by early October. So we had a month to use the data. We did a lot of work, a lot of good stuff, but we could have done a lot more. We could have done a lot better had the party been organized and had the party had the data that we needed. And so became state chair. I've served on multiple committees in Kentucky. Got more involved at National, helping out there, and then, kind of through time, got involved in the CRM. We have a few other projects kind of related, but I was on the IT committee in 2017, and one of the things that we did was try to figure out how to fix National's internal infrastructure first, and we kind of wrapped all that up. And then we're like, well, now what do we do? We're still here, we're still on the committee, and we started. All of us on the committee were former state chairs, or a lot of us were, and we're like, well, what can we do to help the states? What can we do at National? And Andy Burns, affiliate support specialist, was on the next call, and we asked him that question. What can we do to help states? And he said the number one issue is that states can't seem to properly manage data, which struck a chord with me. Absolutely agreed with him because I was still struggling with that in Kentucky. We were using Google Sheets. It was a nightmare. And so the CRM project was born. We did a demo 2017. We did the demo. We got greenlit mid-2018, but we didn't get funded until 2019. And so the project's basically been running out of beta mode and official mode since about mid-2019. So we're just over 2 years old into the project. And that kind of gets us, caught up on the history, I think. I hope.
Absolutely. And I want to speak to a couple of those points. First off, when you mentioned not having data, not having access to lists, and having to buy expensive lists, we need to remind folks that one of the most important points of having ballot access is being able to have, in a sense, the state divine by nothing other than registration rolls, who is a libertarian. I know in Rhode Island, where we've got some of the most difficult and most onerous standards in the nation for quote unquote ballot access, I'm routinely confronted by, well, you've got the same petition count as everybody else. Why is that a problem? Well, because the state is acting as a free data mining service for the duopoly, for the Republicans and the Democrats. They know who their voters are. They know who voted. They know their addresses. It's pretty easy to populate some of those apps that they're running around with, when in fact the state is doing a free data mining service on your behalf. In Rhode Island, we don't have that advantage. And the vice chair, Mike, has done a splendid job of literally scraping everything he can to put this together. But all of a sudden, when you go to the state house or you do the motor voter thing, or at birth or even pre-birth, I believe in some cases in Rhode Island, when you sign up for your party status, I think they do it at baby showers now.
In Chicago, you do it after death, but that's
right. It never stops. If all of a sudden people are able to put in that big L that we all love, you've just got it laid out all for you. Now, what in terms of early state adoption? I know that every state's got its own drama, its own ongoing challenges with this. What are some of the issues that you found with regard to, particularly in the early states, their adoption and the collection of the data? How did you just physically go about grabbing these massive amounts of voter? I mean, what are the mechanics behind that? It's got to be pretty intimidating.
Yeah, I mean, there is what we call an ETL process: extract, transform, and load. And we do that with a lot of different data sources. So obviously the National Party has a list of contacts that they've created and maintained over time from a particular state. Oftentimes the state parties have lists or parts of lists or various eras of parts of lists, or, they have some data. States where there's voter registration, we definitely want where we can register to vote as libertarians, such as in my state. We definitely want that data. And then there are outside vendors, L2, Aristotle. There are ways to get additional information. And the key is then we have to crush all that data together, right? We've got to combine it all, clean it, get it in the best shape that we can get it into, and then we bring it into the system. And that's a time-consuming task. I've been working with Florida here recently due to a number of issues. We've got some cleanup work to do, and we're about 2 weeks into it, I think, at this point, and I'd say we're halfway there. So it's quite a task. Back in the day, Virginia had 5 different data sources that we had to combine together. That was difficult, challenging, brutal, lots of verbs or adjectives, and so I'm from Kentucky. I'm allowed to mess up parts of speech. So the point is that the goal is to get the data in the best shape it can be in and have it in one place that everybody then works off of, because every time somebody touches that data, it gets better, right? Every time I send a mailing out, I now know that this person received a mailing, or I know that this email address is bouncing, or I know that this person opted out and said, please don't send me an email anymore. And I have that in one place. And instead of having all these pockets of data, your mail provider, your texting provider, your Google Sheet, your voter roll and national membership list, trying to cross-reference all of that manually is just too much work. It's just too much. And as someone who works in data and is actually, I would say, pretty good at it, I'm not saying I'm a genius or the best, but I do a lot of it. My hope is that, for instance, what I'm doing with Florida, I don't ever have to do this with Florida ever again, right? And that's the goal, is to get it all together one time so that we don't have to keep trying to remerge this data again. The data, once it's in there, it is built for parties to use. And we can talk about that a little bit more. But the main thing is getting rid of what we call the pockets or the buckets of data, and having one authoritative source of the data so that we know, for instance, if I'm making phone calls and I'm calling a libertarian, if we have data that says that they're a Second Amendment supporter, right? If they're a real hardcore Second Amendment supporter, more so than the average libertarian, which is pretty hardcore, I might assign that to one of my hardcore Second Amendment people to make that call, because they're going to have something in common right away, right? And there's nothing scary or awful about this. This is literally connecting with people where they are, right? We're pairing up 2 people that have a very common interest in the party, and potentially creating a new friendship, right? So that's kind of the goal here, is to do the things that we need to do, but do them better, do them more intelligently, connect the right people together. And so that's a big part of trying to get all of this together. And the reason that we do it with national, and there's been people that have said, well, why not use a nation builder? Why not use one of the other external services? We looked at that. At the time, nation builder, in order to do what we wanted to do, I want to say it was like upwards of $500,000 a year. I can't remember. And that was only to break it down, I think, to the state level, although that might have been to the county level. The one thing that we've done with what we've built that is very unique is that we've got the permissioning. It's the same set of data, right? It's one database, but the permissioning is broken down based upon your role in the party. So a county volunteer can see the only the leads in the county that they live in or have been assigned to be a volunteer in, and that's it, right? A county leader can only see or assign leads that are in their county. A state person can only see the leads that are in their state. States that do regional parties, some of the bigger states, Pat, I know you're in Rhode Island. I don't think you do this, but some of the states break things down. Kentucky is actually a really big state geographically. We break things down by congressional district. So we can actually have county level can only see the county, congressional district can see the congressional district, state sees the state, and then above that, LNC region can see the whole LNC region, and then the national party can see everything. And that lets us make sure that we're protecting data, but at the same time also ease the burden of not having a needle in a haystack effect when I'm a county leader and all I want to see is the 100, 200, 300 libertarians in my small county. I don't want to have to wade through all of Kentucky's data to find 100 or 200 people. So that's really some of the real big parts, the reasons why this project exists is to stop the pockets of data, have better data, connect people together with what they want, and also make sure that what they're working within a set of data that is relevant, always relevant to the individual that's working that data.
Now, how many states participate right now? Or actually, a better question is, how many affiliates participate right now?
Yeah, so right now we are at 29. We, without getting into too much of it, we've had a bumpy year on the LNC, and as a result, a number of states have paused their onboarding. I don't know that we've actually onboarded anyone since May of this year, maybe June. I can't remember when the bumpiness really got going, but those states that put things on pause still seem to, they're still interested. It's not a matter of, it is not a matter of the system. It is a matter of concern about the LNC. And I will tell you that, and I think this is important for every state affiliate to hear. The LNC, number one, pretty much stays hands off of the CRM other than funding it, which I certainly appreciate. And we only work with whoever is the official affiliate of a state. And that is important in that when we've had a couple of issues this year, we were able to get control of the site and the data in one instance and give that to the group that we ended up recognizing. If we were using an external service, that may have required legal action. It may have required lawsuits, at least mean letters from attorneys to try to wrestle assets away from potential rogue actors. And so by having it under National's roof, it actually is a benefit. I know that seems odd to some people, but I really do think that's a good thing. The other thing that's important to note about the system is that we have built this on open source software, and everything that we have done is open source as far as the system itself. And we have in the policy manual that any state that leaves the system is entitled to a complete copy of their data prior to leaving. We do have checks and balances in that the states retain control of their DNS, which is when you go to like lp.org instead of an IP address, that's DNS, that's domain name service. I'm just trying to make sure everybody knows. So the states still control where their website is. So if they want to leave, they are welcome to go. We're always sad to see states go, and we have had 2 or 3 leave over the time of the project. And that's usually due to states thinking that they can do something more specialized for themselves. Our history shows that while there may be temporary gains in doing that, but after 3 or 4 years, leadership changes, people get tired of maintaining things, and systems fall apart. And then we end up with broken data again, and that's no fun. So that's part of why we're trying to encourage people to use the system. But we do make sure that there are checks and balances. And the LNC, it's not like you're in there meddling with your data or doing anything like that.
So let's start from the state generated process. The state comes to you, or an affiliate comes to you, and says, "We would like to be part of this project."
Yeah.
What generally are the beginning steps? First of all, I assume there is some type of contract drawn up, including some type of NDA. How does that all work?
Yeah, so what's interesting is it's not really a contract right now. We've talked about that in the wake of some of the stuff that's going on. There's been a desire to have either a memorandum of understanding or an actual contract. I'm open to either one. Those talks have kind of stalled out only because, I don't know, it's complicated because when you start talking about legal contracts, some other stuff gets triggered as well. There's things that come along with the whole legal contract thing. The goal of this project was to try to just get national and states to work better together. And for better or for worse, maybe we'll end up with actually having contracts and memorandums of understanding or whatever. I don't know where that's going to end. Right now, I haven't had people beating my door down to get that done. So kind of put that over on the side, let that sit there for a moment. We do have some sample language, but nobody's beating me up right now for it. But as far as onboarding, it starts out with, just reaching out and asking. So you can ask me. Andy Burns actually has, we have, as part of our systems, we have a project management system that, by the way, states can use too. That's one of our lesser known shared services is the project management system. Because everybody loves project management, but it is necessary when we do big projects, and especially multi-step ones like bringing a state online. So the first step is getting the project set up, deciding who the points of contact are, and getting all of that kind of squared away. And you need to know who the treasurer is, the IT contact, the state chair, all the people that we're going to need. We get all the steps assigned out. Implementation is usually gathering all your pockets of data, right? All your buckets, getting those into CSV format, all that good jazz. And then typically, at least today, we encourage people to use Stripe as the processor. Now that could always change, but right now we encourage people to use Stripe. Some states aren't using Stripe yet. Setting up an account is free, so we just kind of point them to where to get that set up. Usually it's done by the treasurer. That's off in one step. And then right now, in the past, we have used a mailing provider known as SparkPost. We are moving away from them only because the plugin, the extension that we use for that, is no longer being developed. And as the world has gone that way, we are now encouraging states, and actually, I think by December 31st, we're trying to get everybody off of SparkPost and onto Amazon Web Services, AWS, for sending email. And it actually is going to be cheaper for most states anyway. So basically, you got to set up an AWS account, you got to set up a Stripe account, get all your data together, let us know who your leadership team is, at least at the state level. And then from there, we work to merge all the data together, get everything cleaned up and in the database, get Stripe set up. We set up a basic website that's just a generic template. We turn that over to your IT folks and let them start tweaking it to their, specifics. And then when we're satisfied with all of that, when we're ready to go live, we go back to whatever system you're using today, grab whatever data has changed, any new donations, anything like that. bring that last copy in, and we go live. The entire process can take anywhere from a week to a month, depending, or longer, depending on both how many states are trying to come in at the same time and the responsiveness of that particular state and the amount of time that they're volunteers. And we recognize that state parties are mostly volunteers, how much time their volunteers have to dedicate to getting it done.
Now, you mentioned Stripe and AWS, Amazon Web Services. Yes. As you're talking to a group of people that are inordinately plugged in, particularly if you're listening to this program right now, you're pretty tech savvy, you're pretty aware. Do you have any concerns about, well, to a lesser degree, Stripe, even though they have disassociated with some firms and some organizations because of their connections to medical cannabis and or what they call questionable marketplaces, but more likely AWS, which has, even though we know we bear no resemblance, even passing, to some of the madness and the states of denial that went in about the political process. Not that we don't have our own states of denial about the political process, but are you concerned about those organizations turning on us politically at some level? We are, sometimes despite our own internal assertions, we are quite prominent in the world of alternative politics, as you know.
Yeah, and it is always a concern. I'm always worried about, what might happen to us, right? And I wouldn't say I'm of the libertarians and the big L libertarians out in the world, I wouldn't say I'm the most concerned. I mean, there are some people that are very, very concerned about being, kicked off of things. And certainly we've had our troubles with that, right? What was that, 2 years ago? I think Facebook banned half our party or something. I mean, it was nuts, the number of people that were getting kicked out of Facebook, for no reason. And still to this day, I guess, for a year and a half there, they were going back and like, oh, you posted this meme back in 2008, and so we're giving you a 30-day ban for something you did 8 years ago, or I'm sorry, 12 years ago. It's like, what? I don't even know what this was. So, I mean, I always have concerns about that, and I will say, along with that, there's always a backup plan, right? I work in IT, and I didn't really give my background, but I am an IT professional. I do storage, backup, and converged infrastructure and hyper-converged infrastructure. So I'm very much a build the back-end guy, both in my personal and professional life, and my LP life. So I've always got a plan B, and plan B is indeed to, I mean, there's an infinite number of things we could do. If that were ever to be the case, we do have one of our other services that's also lesser known, is our email server that originally was for lp.org and had plenty of horsepower and space. And I think boasts 12 or 14 states today. I should know that, but whatever. The point is that we would be able to continue to take donations and send email receipts to people making donations without a problem. While we scrambled to get a new mass blast system up. And in the meantime, states could, fall back to things like MailChimp or whatever. Not that that's ideal. The problem with using an external service like that is that you've got to export the data out of the database, put it into that external service. Then when you're done, you have to go through all the bounces and unsubscribes and bring them back in. You're moving data back and forth. And as somebody who moves data, I'll tell you that number one, it's always a risk whenever you're doing stuff by hand. And number two, it's a pain in the butt. God, I hate moving data. Especially when it's repetitive. It's one thing when it's like, hey, I'm moving the data because we're going to make it awesome and better, and it's going to be great, and the final product's going to be it, and it's going to be awesome. That's one thing. When it's like, oh boy, I get to move my data again this month. Yay. That's no fun. And it gets repetitive and awful, and that leads to volunteer burnout. So that we would have a route for the short term while we scrambled to get the long term in, and we'd have to look at the landscape at that time, because if Amazon decides to kick us, when Amazon has kicked people off, I think the most what was that site called, Parler? Yeah.
Yep.
It wasn't just them, right? Google said no, which would have implications for lp.org email, right? That's where we have our email.
Right.
So there are a lot of implications that if we ever reach that point of getting blacklisted by big tech, we'd have a lot of problems and a lot of fires in a lot of places, but we do have fallback systems to keep our base operations up.
And one thing I'll say about the LP, the big L side of the libertarian movement, that we have got the IT brain power, both in yourself and amongst legions of tech everywhere. By the way, I'll never forget the night I was working. I spent quite a bit of time in tech, watching someone accidentally in a display of their flashing keyboard skills mirror a drive the wrong way. Oops.
No.
And you're watching it happen in slow motion. And anyone who's ever worked with big data, someone I think just felt a Harry Potter-esque twinge in their head the minute.
Yeah, that's the worst. I think the worst thing I've ever done, knock on wood.
There's still time.
Yeah, there's still time. Personally, I think the worst I ever did was I destroyed a hard drive because I was putting the case on while it was running. And the hard drive, that particular drive, for some reason, had pins out the front, and I shorted the drive out, and that was the end of that.
Oof.
Yeah, that sucked.
A long night just became a... And the problem, too, for anyone who's worked in big storage is that, if you work in big storage, you're never going to have a long weekend again because, I'm old enough to remember the days when you just sent out a memo at 12 and said, the mainframe's down at 2. And everybody just kind of went, oof, and then just stop what they're doing. In the year 2021, you're pretty much starting after the Pacific Coast desk leaves Friday night, and you've got till Tuesday morning on a 3-day weekend to make the upgrade work. How's that for a flashback?
The old days of IT were great. I remember one of my early jobs, I was the administrator of a CRM, actually, and developer. I came into that, it was already there, but I was doing a whole bunch of, finishing the project out and then doing a bunch of automation, which is one thing I'm big into, is automation, because I hate repetitive tasks. And we had an outage window every night from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So one night I played Doom on the server. Because why not? Why not? Which, by the way, server video cards are god-awful slow.
Right.
Yeah. Lots of CPU power. Video, not so much.
I think the operative word is 80 by 25 green.
It was brutal. I was like, yeah, that didn't work. But it was fun. It was an experiment, whatever. That was an old Solaris server. But the point, I guess, is that from a data perspective, we do also, I guess we'll talk about that. We have everything redundant. We're doing snapshots now. So the LNC at the last meeting gave us funding to upgrade the system's hardware. And we did that. We're through that migration. And that hardware now is capable natively, because it is a hyper-converged infrastructure, we're doing snapshots every 15 minutes for 2 days. We're doing daily snapshots that last 2 weeks. We're doing weekly snapshots that last 2 months, and we're doing monthly snapshots that last 5 months. So we're able to get really, really granular. If something bad happens to the system, we're going to lose the minimum amount of data. And that's absolutely critical, again, in anything you do. And even the stuff that if something bad did happen, what we would do is roll back to the 15 minute ago or less copy. We'd keep the later copy, and then we'd do forensics on it to pull out the little bits that we had lost. So we have the ability to get granular and protect our data. And upcoming on that, I actually, in my lab here, which I'm in my closet over here, which you can kind of see the door, that's my data closet, air conditioned and all that good jazz, and UPSs and blah, blah, blah. It runs the same system that we're running. And eventually it's going to replicate here. And we're going to be able to, if, for instance, there were some event that took out power in an entire state, not that ever happens, that we would be able to get everybody back up and online in 10 minutes or less, not accounting for the states that still maintain their own DNS. So we'll have that ability to be back up and online. We are redundant. We're protecting our data. We're doing everything that we can to keep the system secure and hardened by limiting access, by putting new security protocols in place that were also part of the upgrade, and then also replicating and backups and being able to recover very, very quickly in the case of some sort of failure. That also gave us the ability to rebuild our staging environment where we do all of our testing. I mentioned that I did that data import for Oregon last night. I did that in our staging environment first. So did that there to make sure everything was okay. And then once verifying the data, everything's cool, I flip over to production and do the same thing there. So that is all part of making sure that we are providing the highest quality service with the greatest amount of uptime possible. And I think that's super duper important, especially with 29 states and national all relying on that system to be up to take donations, which, you know, money is important to the movement. We have to bring in money to fund our operations.
Absolutely. Just one last anecdotal question before we take a little station intermission. You know, back in the early 90s, when early on in my IT career, I worked in Midtown Manhattan, and the first time that the World Trade Center was attacked, a lot of folks woke up to the fact that they had complete and multiple backups that had taken place that were properly stored inside the World Trade Center, which was at that point in time a federal crime scene, and they were unable to get to them, which of course, if you are a stockholder in any one of a number of offsite storage companies, you made a lot of money the next few weeks, because literally hot sites were built in and around Giant Stadium. If folks ever went out to the old Meadowlands, you'd find yourself in the middle of office parks that were very well manicured, some beautiful buildings, great visuals of direct line of sight to Manhattan, and with empty parking lots. And you would say, well, this is bizarre. Well, most of them are actually off-site storage spots. And every major metropolitan area, especially in Atlanta or New York or some such, will have those. I'm assuming we're doing some type of off-site storage for our primary backups? Yeah,
so, and that's actually better or for worse. That's the copy that's here. The upside is it's right here with me. The downside being I'm not redundant on internet or power. But we do have a copy here. Long term, I'd like to see us do a little bit more on that front. But, you know, as noted, right, we're 2 years into this system of really being production. And I think people are just finally understanding both the power and the importance of it. You know, early on, we had a lot of trouble getting this funded. And now we're on the other side of that, right? Where now it's like, well, what do you need? What, you know, and of course there are still competing needs, right? There's still things that we have to do beyond just the system, ballot access, candidates, marketing, communications, all the things that the party has to do. But it's no longer a question of, is data important? And I think that that's important that we as a party and as a national board have overcome that question of, is data important? The answer is yes. Everyone knows it. And so now, you know, as we continue forward, I suspect we'll continue to make that a better process. But for now, anyway, we do have an offsite copy. It's here. We have the onsite copies. So we should be, we're redundant at the site because it's actually a cluster, hyperconverged cluster. So if we lose a node, we lose a hard drive, we lose any of that, we're good there. If we lose power, they've got generators until the generators run out of gas. And in that case, then we're here. We have copies of it here, and we can be online at least temporarily here with the goal of getting back to our data center, not to live. It was funny when we passed all this, people actually were under the impression that I was going to put the hardware in my home. I'm like, no.
You and Hillary.
No. The bathroom's over there. But anyway, this is the data closet. The data closet's over here. The bathroom's over here. But the point is that we don't we want to make sure everything is actually secure and make sure that everything is done right. And to that end, a lot of everything comes down to funding. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw this plug out here right now. If you believe in this project, if you believe that data is important, if you're one of the states that's benefiting, we do have some other things coming that I need to talk about too. But if you're on the system and your website's being hosted there, I would encourage you to please help us fund it. You can go to lp.org/CRM, and that money goes directly into the CRM. You can go to lp.org Contribute Affiliate Support Fund, just like it's down there in the bar. That also helps fund the CRM and other affiliate support related. There you go, lp.org/CRM. Other affiliated support related stuff. And of course, just generally speaking, right? lp.org/donate. Guys, everything takes money. But it doesn't, if we get everybody to help, then it's not a huge ask, right? $10 a month, $20 a month. I'm a $25 a month donor to the CRM project. Actually, I think it's $25.75 because I'm doing the 3% pay for the fee thing. But everything helps. And the more that we have of those donors helps keep this system being improved. So if you want to keep seeing the system and seeing it continue to grow and improve, I would encourage you to please help us fund those improvements.
Folks, if you're just joining us, you're listening to the Affiliate Spotlight on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television. Ken Moellman is our special guest. He has worn numerous hats during his career as a libertarian, a big L libertarian. Currently serves as vice chair of the LNC, the Libertarian National Committee. He is also the info warrior behind the LP's CRM project. And Ken, thanks again for joining us, particularly after a long and well-spent evening last night.
Yeah.
A lot. Yeah. Talk to us about, folks ask about, and I've always wondered this, the connection between what you IT warriors represent as CiviCRM and what we have now. Is that the open source product that you're talking about, that you've modified? What's the connection there?
It is. So what we're using, so let's go back to the IT committee of 2017. I talked about it briefly in kind of introducing everything. But in 2017, the IT committee, after we kind of solved all of National's immediate problems of, oh my gosh, we're not going to go into those. We fixed them. There was data movement issues, all kinds of things. We fixed a lot of problems. And when we decided, hey, the next big thing is trying to help affiliates, and we asked about what to do, and we got the answer of a CRM, managing data, we evaluated a number of different products, both commercial, as a service, and open source. And when we went through those, there were a couple of commercial products that would have served our purposes, but would have been extremely expensive. And by extremely expensive, I mean somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000 of the LNC's annual budget, which was obviously out of the question. There were some, as a service stuff that was similar price, and then we had the open source stuff, and we went through a few of those. I remember I evaluated Sugar CRM, which is, I believe, a derivative of Tiger, vTiger. We looked at several of them, and in the end, what we came up with was that Civi, because of its lineage as a political tool, those that don't know, it was originally built as an internal tool for Howard Dean's 2004 presidential run. So it's been around a while. And it's very mature in that way, which is good. But it's also been adapted to do other things other than just a political campaign, which is also good. It's been heavily extended. Extensions are available. And so what makes our system special is that we have Civi, and then we have extensions that are also open source. We have actually paid to have extensions either modified or actually, in one case, actually created. Our permissioning tree stuff was in part created, and we paid for that. and tools specific to the LP and LP state organizations. So we built this with the input of multiple state chairs, with the input of multiple quote unquote power users, and trying to make it so that we have a tool that our state parties can use. And as a state chair, a former state chair myself, I know the struggles of trying to maintain a website, trying to maintain email servers, trying to maintain data. It consumes a massive amount of time to try to maintain all of these systems as a state party, even as a service, right? It still takes time. And so what we've done, I actually just built a tool that lets us import Secretary of State databases, right? Our registered libertarians very, very quickly into our system, right? That by building that one program, I help all 29 states that are in the system, right? And that's what we get out of this. We get the economies of scale. We get the ability to help. Every improvement we make improves for 29 states. It's not about, in my case, the Libertarian Party of Kentucky. It's about 29 states and helping all 29, including LPKY, but LPIN, LP Georgia, LP Pennsylvania. You know, I'm sorry, I got into Howard Dean mode there all of a sudden. Yeah.
Well, you bring up an important point. Without naming names, maybe just give us a little bit of a case study for what you would consider your biggest success. And again, without naming, kind of obscure it a little bit because I'm not here to call anybody out. Yep.
No, I'll name names. Our biggest power users that are definitely showing success are Indiana, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. All three of them, and again, it's not just the CRM, right? Data is only one part of the success. It's a critical part of success, but it's only one part. Pennsylvania brings in a huge amount of money. Georgia brings in good enough money. Indiana brings in good money and is building county affiliates like crazy. And, Evan McMahon, the chair of Indiana,
right.
I've known Evan for, over a decade at this point, at least. He's used Civi in the past. Indiana used to use Civi. One of the downsides of CiviCRM is that you have to care and feed for it, right? You're maintaining the software. You're maintaining the system. And if you let that atrophy, or if you get somebody in that doesn't understand what they're doing, you can really break the system. And unfortunately, in Indiana's case in the past, they had an issue. They lost data. That's bad. And you'll hear those stories from time to time. And when people talk negatively about Civi, it is often based off of a bad experience where someone did something bad and lost data. And that's part of the reason why we do so many backups and have so many ways to roll it back, right? In case somebody does do something bad. But we also limit who has access to what. So a state chair does not have access to install an extension in Civi, right? A state chair does not have access. Evan McMahon does not have access to see the contacts in Kentucky, except for the ones that have donated to his state party. So he gets to see me because I've donated to the Libertarian Party of Indiana. I've been to their events. But he can't modify people outside of his realm, right? And we protect our data in that way, and we also protect our system in that way. So we do work very hard to make sure that we do thorough testing in our staging environment prior to implementing anything, which helps protect our data, protect the integrity of our system. And so it is Civi. It is open source. Everything that we have ever coded for the system is also open source. We release that back out to the public with the hopes that other people will use it, because the more people that use our tool, the less of a burden there is on us to keep maintaining that tool, that other people will look to expand and extend it as well for their purposes.
In fact, if you could jump in for a second, because data folks tend to bandy about the term open source a lot. And I'm not sure that everyone in our audience, although given the preponderance of IT smarts amongst wicked smart libertarians everywhere, we're probably over 90%. But what do you mean by open source?
Yeah, so open source software is a concept that the developers are the users are the developers, and everybody just contributes. And they're, generally speaking, open source means that it is free to use. There are different open source licenses, so sometimes some licenses prevent commercial use, some don't. There are several different ones that dictate how the copyrights work. But in a broad sense, it just means that you can download the source code. If, Pat, you wanted to start learning how to do CiviCRM and have the resources available to you, whether you bought servers or you rented space, you can go download Civi. You could try to rebuild everything that we've built. Now, I will tell you that the hard part of Civi is setting it up. Oh my gosh, is that the hard part? But once it's set up and that, it's decent and easy, relatively easy to maintain as long as you don't screw it up. But it means that anybody can download the software and use it, typically, generically. And so we use open source, and then anything that we have coded or any improvements that we make, part of the kind of unwritten agreement with open source is, hey, when you make it better, you give that code back to the community, because that's kind of your quote unquote fee for using it. And likewise, other people are doing the same. And so the code just gets better and better and better and better. And it's all voluntary, right? Which is very libertarian. It's a voluntary society of people that are working together to make the code better. Not that all people in the open source community are libertarians. That's also not true.
So some early Linux developers I met would be would take us down in a heartbeat.
Listen, one of the biggest users of the CiviCRM internationally, because it is used internationally, I believe the Green Party of Australia is a big user. And then Wikipedia, the Wikimedia Foundation, is a big user. There are lots of groups out there that use this software, and they're people right? It's not like you've never heard of Wikipedia. It's not like you've never heard of the Green Party. Now, maybe you haven't dealt with the Green Party of Australia, but it's not like it's a one-off system, right? It is used by large and small firms. When we started out small. We used one of the CiviCRM hosting companies, which, I'll just tell you, it's called Civi Hosting. They do a pretty good job for little sites. If you ever wanted to set up a little site, that's where I would start. But the point, I guess, is that, we've grown and we've grown and we've grown. We went from Civi Hosting, which was a hosted Civi platform as a service, to a single server rented, and now to a cluster of servers that are in a data center that are our hardware. And in the long run, that actually saves us money. So I'm happy about that too. We have a 3-year, 4-month ROI on break even between the hardware costs and the data center. So, and that is also, I should mention, one of the very key things about this project. If you look at the terms of service on any of those as a service providers, if you dig in and you look down through there, you will see that the service provider either A, is entitled to a copy of your data, or B, outright owns your data. And that's not necessarily a good thing. Whereas with the Civi, us doing it the way we're doing it, we own the data. And in the policy manual for national, I fought for that when I was not on the LNC. And we got it in there that the data is co-owned. Your state's data is co-owned by national and the state. And so that means that your state party, and more importantly, only the Libertarian Party owns that data. And I think that's extremely important if you understand the power of data and how other providers are selling our data. If you're using another provider, they're selling our data to our political competition to help defeat us. So
you can't. Our product is really, obviously as a political party, our primary function is to elect people to office. But
Yes.
if you were to say that we are if you will, a consumer product company, our two products would be political candidates and data. And at this point, I don't know if you can really separate the two because of the symbiotic nature between a legitimate candidacy for office and the accompanying data, both prior to, during, and after they are elected. So every data is everything. And to the degree that we have found out in the last 2 or 3 years, how a certain nefarious yet highly institutionalized data providers are marketing that data about literally everything we do. You have to be. We are at a point now, clearly, where both the law and the, if you will, the ethics of data, the ethics of information, have clearly moved beyond our traditional approach to said issues, and as a result, we are almost hopelessly behind in tracking and trailing and monetizing and covering and all of these large data providers. They are bleeding edge, and they are constantly looking for avenues with which to profit from the work of others. And it's, if you agree to that, that's not necessarily nefarious, as long as there's a clear understanding that that's the relationship. I mean, we volunteer to join Facebook. We are not charged for Facebook. One could say there's, the pre-scandal. Most people probably weren't aware to the degree with which Facebook used their data. Anyone who goes on Facebook right now and isn't aware that, that frankly, we are almost an add-on. We are not the primary product for Facebook. We are just a mechanism from which to harvest data from. Is clearly naive at this point in time in the year 2021. I don't know if I've done a good job explaining that, but your user experience in Facebook and in most consumer software products are a byproduct of their actual business goals, which is to harvest data. So
my goal is to confuse the crap out of that algorithm to the best of my abilities. So
there you go. Now you've teased us a little bit on some of the stuff as we say. It's a sophisticated crew here at LPTV, but some of the stuff that you've got in the skunk works. How's that for an old school term, right? I haven't been able to play drop the skunk sword card in quite a while. But can you tell us a few more specifics or tease us a little bit more about what the LP CRM project team there in the bunker in an undisclosed location, 30 stories below what is allegedly the state of Kentucky, but we know you're somewhere else because we're talking with a cipher or a hologram right now, what they're actually working on.
When I built my home, I tried to convince my wife to let me build a sub-basement. She wouldn't let me. Anyway, so we're doing some interesting stuff. So actually, we have some interesting analytics that'll be in Andy Burns' report to the LNC at this upcoming LNC meeting. Have things that we're mining out of the CRM, because all of the transactions are going through for national, other than things mailed through the post office, because I don't know, nostalgia. I don't know. But other than things that get mailed to the office, anything done electronically goes through the CRM, so we can see all this, and then we bring the other stuff in later. The number of donors that donated in 2020 who did not donate in 2021, and how much money that amounted to. We're building charts and graphs, trying to work now with a concerted effort to reach out to fundraising directors, development directors, et cetera, to find out what charts, graphs, data that they need to raise money specific to the role of a state development director. Let's see, what else are we doing? I'm improving the importer. I've got, right now it works with SOS data. Understanding that the built-in data importation process, I want to say it was like 1,000 records every 15 minutes is the default. And the one I built can do up to 99,000 records an hour. So it's about 25 times faster.
And I got to jump in and ask a question on that. Back in the olden days when I did data import, your dream was to have a flat file database that with delimiters and blah blah blah. I mean,
Yep.
how many different styles of and how many different formats are you importing data from? If I've learned nothing from dealing with the state and local governments, is that they're highly undisciplined.
Yes.
It's whoever's brother-in-law they happen to hire in terms of porting the data. It's very often intentionally shrouded in proprietary data schemes.
Yeah.
And video is a perfect example of that. They all, a truly advanced municipal government now will just simply put the crap out that they're generating out to YouTube, so you can scrape it and everybody can see it. But here in Soviet Workers' Paradise, People's Republic of Rhode Island, they actually use a proprietary product which is locally privately owned. And when you call up and say, how do I get around this to download the data? They'll tell you with a straight face, well, that's a proprietary to the state of Rhode Island. You're not allowed to edit it. And, at that point in time, sometimes I just call them to ask them so I can erupt in gales of laughter around them. But that's a very real problem for you, isn't it?
It is. So there's a couple of ways that we're handling that. First and foremost, so the importer itself, I built a wrapper that goes around the outside of it, right? That basically transforms the data and lets you define a map file of column to column to be able to map, oh, this is the mailing address. Okay, it goes in this column. And that way the importer itself doesn't have to do that intelligence. By doing a little bit of pre-work, the ETL, right? ETL process, by taking the original file and converting it into what the script wants, it does the import script, I mean. And by the way, the importer is written in C because I'm old school. So yeah, but C is a very good language for back-end processing, right? And that's why it's written in C. So as long as the file is in the format that we need it in, it is fast. And so by not having to consider, oh wait, this is column 7. What's column 7 again? Oh, it's this. No. We know what column 7 is. We always know what column 7 is. And so by doing the ETL up front, we're able to import, tens or hundreds of thousands of rows very, very quickly. And that is the difference, by the way, between what I'm doing and the built-in Civi tool. The built-in Civi tool, every single line goes, okay, so what was column 7 again? Oh yeah, column 7 was this. What was column 8 again? Oh yeah, column 8 was this. And that's why it's so much slower, right? It's all about how are you doing it in the process. And so, but yeah, so essentially we have an ETL. And by the way, Kentucky, I had that argument that you were just talking about with Kentucky, and it's a fun story, and I'll tell it because Pat, you and I love to tell stories, and we'll probably be on here till midnight. But the state of Kentucky, I was talking to him about it, and I'm like, hey guys, you guys charge $2,000 to download the statewide database, and you claim that that's your cost. I don't really think that's the case. Can you explain it to me? And they're like, well, our system, we have to pay by the cycle. And I'm like, oh, mainframe. And we have to do the things and blah, 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 blah. Okay. I'm like, you realize that I could literally replace your entire system with a Linux server with 3 years of hardware maintenance and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, the initial cost would be almost, I don't know, $15,000 in hardware, and that gets you probably 5 years of support. I mean, this is all the stuff I do. And I'm like, so I don't understand, why you're talking about this maintenance, the cost, and I didn't know. They're like, well, our system was state of the art when we built it. I'm like, oh, really? Well, what year was that? I'm like, 1978. I'm like, what year? 1978. What year? 1978. I'm like, oh, so it's basically as old as I am. Cool. I guess I'm state of the art. So
Graduated high school.
yeah, I mean, it is essentially our state has a mainframe that runs the court system, driver's license, and voter registration. And apparently they still pay by the cycle from 1978.
Wow.
So whatever. But it literally could be replaced with a, MySQL database and like $2,000 worth of hardware. It would cost more for the support contract than the hardware. By
the way, I got to ask you: Did you actually drop the do loop referenced last night in the middle of the meeting? Did you refer to someone's behavior as a do loop, or are we just going to let that hang out there?
It was something like that. Yeah, I mean, I started out as a developer. I 5 years old. I got a Texas Instruments 449A or 994A, and taught myself BASIC because I didn't have any way to back up the program. So when I was done with the program, we would just turn it off and away it went. And so rather than just turn it off, you dork around with it because why not? What are you going to do? Break it? And when you're 5, 6, 7 years old, that's what you start learning to fool around with that stuff. Then went Commodore 64, and then I went the Amiga route, and then went to Linux. I actually got into Windows finally in 95, and I ran Windows 95 without a mouse for a full year because I was too cheap to buy a mouse. So, I mean, that was, my pedigree and where I came up through. I was on BBSs before there was the internet. I was on Usenet before the internet. I was on, before the web. I shouldn't say before the internet. The internet goes back before me, actually, I guess.
Were you on ARPANET? That's what I want to know.
No, I was not on ARPANET, but I was on BitNet.
Okay.
The college I went to was so behind on their IT that they did not have the internet. They were still on BitNet. And so what's really cool about that, old school people will remember IRC, Internet Relay Chat.
Yep.
Which, by the way, for those that don't know, is Slack without the fancy interface. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. And by the way, Slack is just IRC with a fancy interface, which is why I don't like it, because I hate IRC. I did that when I was 12. I got over it when I was 14. But IRC, Internet Relay Chat, is the internet version of Relay Chat from BitNet, which I used in college anyway. Blah, blah, blah. The point is that I can sit here and geek out on this stuff. We're kind of deviating because that's what we do. But I don't know. The point is that from a CRM perspective, a data perspective, I do have a pretty decent background in IT. From a development standpoint, I've been a DBA, I've been a developer, I've been a system admin, I've done storage and backup. Now I focus on hyper-converged infrastructure, which is what we're actually running on. So I've got a pretty good depth of experience through time. That's not to say that I am the best at all of that, just that I've done it. And so, we do have a team of volunteers that helps with the system maintenance as well. A lot of these are the IT directors of states that have moved on to the CRM, because once they don't have to maintain the systems, all of a sudden they find themselves with some free time on their hands. And so the cool part about the project is now we've got IT directors from other states helping build Civi, the CRM, right, using their resources, not just to help their state, but again, help all 29 in the system. And we saw it before, it was up before. There are 7 that are onboarding. I guess Oregon's getting ready to come on because I've imported data for them, so I guess they're getting ready to go. I saw they were on the wait list, but I hope that they're ready to flip the switch soon. Be cool, get one more done this year, get back up to 30 states in the system. And hopefully in 2022, things will normalize and we'll get all the people that were coming in and after the LNC, the National Convention in Reno, I'm not running for LNC again, but I will continue to help with this project for as long as I'm permitted to, unless they ban me from it or something. But we'll continue to build this out, and that'll actually give me more time to focus my efforts on continuing to improve the system as well. So we've got a good team of people, good core team, things that are coming. We were on it before, training. We're going to start trying to do better user training, trying to get more training for our county users, because that seems to be the gap right now, is that our county volunteers, our county leaders are struggling to understand how to use the system and to reach out to people. So that's definitely a 2022 initiative. And that coincides with elections, right? We want our county leaders to do the outreach, to reach out and at least talk to all the registered libertarians and anybody who's ever contacted us from their county saying, hey, we're alive, we've got candidates, here's who you're going to have on your ballot. Would you help us? Would you help us reach out to people? Will you help us knock on doors? Will you help this person's campaign? Will you help with a donation? There's lots of ways you can help us. There's always new ways to help the Libertarian Party grow right in your county. And so that, I think, is going to be a big initiative in 22.
So we've only got a couple minutes left, but just one of the things you had alluded to, and the way that I'll describe it, is the cyclical role of leadership at the affiliate level. That could be town, municipal, county, state. You run through cycles where a group of people work together, and then life happens. Job changes, career changes, people retire. All of a sudden, you got to work 3 jobs because you're trying not to put children through theft school, but you have to make 3 different income. Any one of a number of reasons. So you've got. One of the advantages of this is you're not losing that institutional knowledge. But now, and we'll call this part of what we call the shameless self-promotion that we have at the end of every one of our LP TV shows. But how can folks reach out to you if they're new state level, if they're new county or local affiliate level leadership, in order to have that kind of quiet conversation so that they can make the decision at their own board level as to whether or not to jump on board? How does that work? How can folks reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, we have the contact form on the website. I would encourage people to use that form. By the way, if you are still posting your email addresses naked on your website, please stop. Don't do that. That's where the spammers and the scammers get the email addresses from. Use the contact form. And if your website doesn't have a contact form, especially if you're on the CRM, please reach out to me immediately, and we will work to get that switched over. But the lp.org contact form is using Civi. I think, actually, I don't think it is, but it doesn't matter. It does work, and it will reach me. So select contact LNC member, Ken Moellman. I'm the vice chair. Reach me, please. If you want to improve, if you want to take your data operations to the next level, the first step is getting your data in order, getting everything cleaned up, getting the burden of just trying to maintain the systems off of you, and putting it to us where we have the economies of scale where we can actually do this. I mean, we're doing this project with 7 people. We've got 30 states, right? We've already saved 23 people's time. So, and by the way, if you're one of the IT directors out there that is like, hey, I'm kind of bored now that I'm on the project, you can reach out to me on that too. But if you're interested in joining the project, reach out to me. We can talk. I'm more than happy to talk to your state board with your particular concerns. And that goes for states that are already on the system and states that are evaluating it. More than happy to talk about this project all day, all night. It is obviously a big passion of mine. It's why I am involved in national politics at all. Yep, if you contact a specific LNC member right there, that's the one. It's going to drop it open. And look at me. I'm right there in top of the middle column, vice chair. And you can just click on that, put your name, contact info in there. Just say, click on notes, just say, I'd like to learn more about the CRM. I am the blah, blah, blah of whatever state or whatever county. If you're in a county level, I'd like to talk to your whole state if possible and include your counties so that I don't have to talk to all 3,150 counties in the U.S. That's a lot. But, let's get the conversation started. Give me some background. Is your state interested in it? Are there other counties? I'm always interested in helping us win at the local level because, by the way, we have proven we can win at the local level. And this data will help you do it. So the LP, this is where we are. We can absolutely win. I want to help us win. And data is part of that equation.
Absolutely. Now, before you go, Ken, there is a very important event happening in just a couple of weeks here in Massachusetts. And by that, I mean the quarterly meeting of the Libertarian National Committee. As someone who's lived in the North, actually grown up in the Northeast and lived in New England for 30 years, I believe this may be the very first New England region meeting, perhaps almost forever. And it's been decades since a convention has come to New England, despite the fact that I think we would all agree that the I-95 corridor between New York and Boston is really the center of the universe. People are smarter and better looking, present company excluded, up here. And the state, the National Party should really turn and pivot and really generate all its efforts and resources towards it. Anyway, that's my personal opinion, and probably might be debated by many. But you'll have an opportunity if you live anywhere in the Northeast to jet up for 2 days. The meeting is on Saturday and Sunday. There is a fundraiser, a holiday fundraiser that's being held that evening. It's a fundraiser by the chair. Tickets are $150 each. And before people blast, this is a well-developed event looking to attract outside donors. So
it's a political fundraiser. I mean, honestly, in the real world, $150 is actually cheap. It's cheap. I mean, I've seen county organizations ask for $500 for a seat. So
right,
in the
and we've seen the duopoly literally ask people to max out on one ticket to a benefit $2,300. So so we do need to raise money, and if you're in a position to do that, then please take the opportunity to go out. Talk about some of the events and what happens during, particularly, this is the budget meeting. So this is big stuff. And it's open to anyone who's a member or otherwise could come up and actually spend the day and watch and listen in person and see. In Rhode Island, we call it how the sausage is made, right? So, you know, and there's an opportunity to do the in-person thing. There's an opportunity to meet LNC reps and national officers from around the country who you may see every few years at a hectic convention. But this is much more informal and in person than that. I mean, in your mind, what's the benefit of a New England Libertarian coming to an LNC quarterly meeting, particularly the budget one?
Well, I think you've hit one thing that we haven't done it in a while. So, you know, a show of support that doing events in New England, and the reason the reason we haven't done it is that you guys typically have a higher baseline cost, and as libertarians, we are always looking for the good deal, and that's why. So if you want to see the LNC doing more things in New England, then we have to see the level of support that offsets that extra cost. And so things like this holiday fundraiser, where you will get to mingle and meet most of the LNC, will be a opportunity. It'll be an opportunity to show that just because it costs us a few extra bucks to hold the event in New England, that it's okay because we're going to make it up. Right, that there's a level of support in the New England states that we're fine to go forward in the future and do these events in New England. I mean, typically the closest we ever get is DC, you know, and technically not even DC, Alexandria, right? Our offices.
Right.
So if you'd like to see us do more events there, I would strongly encourage you to go to this event. Pay the fundraiser again, $150 in the grand scheme of things. It's not that much, and you will get to mingle and meet and greet with LNC members. As you noted, the meeting itself is also open to the public, and we do take breaks. You can catch us in the hall in between events. I'm always happy to talk to people. You ask anybody. Pat, you and I are not people who shy away from conversation.
Or controversy.
Or controversy, yeah. I mean, I'll give you my opinion. I don't care.
Listen, I for the record, I just put my cell phone number up, as I often do, by the way, because I am the alternate to Region 8. And if anyone wants to discuss with me the events of yesterday evening, I'm happy to do so, particularly if you are a member of the Libertarian Party, because Rich Bowen is the regional rep, and he and I just have an open door on these things. We want people to stop us, and if a couple people want to sort of have an informational or conversational session after the meeting on Saturday, I welcome the opportunity to meet everybody and anybody, and I welcome the opportunity to really meet head on any of their concerns about any recent events, the budget, the party, the election, on and on and on, because we're libertarians. That's just the gig. And if you don't want to maintain that sense of openness, quite frankly, you have no business running for or being an officer of the Libertarian Party. And with it comes sort of the slings and arrows. You know, you're not going to please everybody 100% of the time, but I have always felt, and I believe to my heart, that you are a man of integrity, and you will not only vote your heart and your mind, and you, regardless of the outcomes it might have politically or ramifications it have or might support. But not only are you willing to do that, you're also willing to talk about it. And to that, in a day and an era when people sort of hide behind gatekeepers and voting techniques and this and that, I applaud that. And I understand you're not running for the LNC again. I would hope that the party would recognize the institutional knowledge, the expertise you have, and quite frankly, the integrity and the work ethic that you bring to the party literally every day of your life, and have done so for decades. And when we talk about this sort of cyclical change, there are people who have been constants for the party in the most positive way over the last several years, and you're one of them. So I celebrate that, and I'm thrilled we finally figured out a way to set the schedules up to be on the air, and I can't wait to see you again. On the 4th and the 5th. It's Saturday evening is the fundraiser. But again, if circumstances prevent you, whether it be time, money, whatever, please take the time to come into town and just make your presence known at the meeting. It's important that folks have a physical connection to those that would, and we never use the word govern here in this studio, you have elected to steward the assets, if you will, and the issues surrounding the Libertarian Party, the big L in its implementation of trying to achieve freedom in our life, and to elect people who truly represent both the vision, the philosophy, as well as our statement of principles and our platform. It's fundamental to everything we do. Let's get people away from their computers. As ironically, I sit here on one preaching to people. Let's get people out to the streets, and part of that is being a voice in your own party. That's actually step one.
And Pat, if I remember right, I think the Libertarian Association of Massachusetts is also having an event Friday night, I think.
I believe so. We'll nail that down by Candidate's Corner.
I was going to say that's another opportunity then for interacting with your local party, which is also important. I mean, right. This affiliate spotlight, get involved with your affiliate. I can't emphasize enough. And Pat, thank you for the kind words. There are the one thing if there's one thing I'm happy about being on the LNC and this term is that there are a lot of people in the party that do a lot of work, and I hope that I have at least helped them feel that hard work is appreciated. That within the party, people who do hard work, usually behind the scenes, are cared for by the party, that the outcomes, the things that they are doing, I value personally. And I think every single person who is out there doing the work behind the scenes, unsung, I run into them all the time. And they're like, oh yeah, I run the whatever system for whoever. Cool, thank you. Because, it's extraordinarily important that the work gets done. And as a volunteer organization, it can be a struggle. It takes time away that I could be doing anything else, that those volunteers could be doing anything else. But they choose to do the hard work of the party. And I really do thank all of them for doing that. And Pat, thank you for doing this show. I know you put in time to this, that your other endeavors, you are sacrificing potential income. Actually, like most of the LNC and most of the people involved in the party are sacrificing potential income to try to make this movement work. And so I am very, very grateful to everyone who puts in the effort to grow this party, grow the movement. And again, I just reemphasize, especially the local folks. A lot of times, we've got a lot of people on the ground that I don't know all your names, and I'm not the best name remembering person, because politics is all about names, and I suck at politics. But the point is that I really do appreciate everybody doing the work, though. And thank you, Pat. Thank you, and our fellow members of the Affiliate Support Committee, and all of us out in the field in the affiliates doing the work. So, again, I will re-emphasize lp.org/CRM, lp.org/contribute/affiliate support fund, lp.org/donate. Whatever you can help us with. If there are tons of people out there who don't have the time, I totally get that. If you don't have the time to help, please help fund the people who do. And that's how you can do it. Thank you so much, Pat. Thank you, everybody who's paid attention to this tonight. I'm sorry that I may have bored some of people with the technical jargon, but if you are interested, hit me up. I'm more than happy to help if you're, interested in going forward with the CRM.
Ken, thanks a lot. Stay on for a second. If you don't mind, just some editorial notes again. The Libertarian National Committee will be holding a weekend chock full of events. I know there's going to be some informal side trips that are going to take place, some tours. The Libertarian Association of Massachusetts wants to be the best host imaginable. I'm hoping we're going to have an opportunity to meet Ashley Shade, the most recently elected Libertarian, who did an amazing job of getting elected. I will tell you that in a part of Massachusetts that makes Midtown Manhattan look like Utah politically. Okay, so Miss Ashley Shade is the chair of the Libertarian Party of Massachusetts. I'm hoping that we'll get a chance to listen to her as well. Folks, this event, this show on Mondays, and particularly the show on Fridays where we have candidates on every week, we're looking for candidates this year going into the 2022 midterms. If you'd like to be a candidate, reach out to me. I'm all over Facebook. I'm everywhere. I usually post my cell phone number. I think it's up there on Region 8 right now. Give me a call. Folks, if you're candidates and you have commercials that you've run, 15 and 30-second commercials that you'd like us to share with the party nationally, we're happy to do so. This broadcast, not on the LPTV Facebook page, but also on the Libertarian Party Facebook page, where hundreds of thousands of people will scan by this and very often see both this and are announcing thousands and thousands of people. If you're having an event coming up, if you're having a money bomb coming up, give us an opportunity to help publicize it and share your brand as a candidate and or affiliate and or state level chapter with the rest of the Libertarian Party. Folks, you've been listening to the Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight on LPTV, a production of the Libertarian Party Affiliate Support Committee. Valerie Sarwark serving as chair, and of course the Libertarian National Committee. Whitney Bilyeu serving as chair. As always, John Gapso is on the big board helping us out with the infotainment and the graphics. I'm your host, Pat Ford. It is a privilege not only to have the opportunity to host this show on Mondays and Friday nights, but also as we start out this next political cycle, the mid-year elections, 2022, to enter the field of battle with all of you. You are all my brothers and sisters. I'm here to serve, and I'm here to help folks get elected so that we can engage in the fundamental change, so that we can broadcast both our philosophy, our statement of principles, our platform, our approach to life, to public office, so that we can steward the resources ultimately to support the ultimate minority here in America. And of course, that is the individual. Stay safe. Have a great week. We'll see you Friday night.